Rob and I moved to Fresno a few months before 1980 when we were 12 years old. I remember our first day in the 7th grade at Tenaya Middle School was Halloween. We had an after-school dance and we made fast friends. Two of them were Eric Dansby and Nick Urbina, who soon asked me to join their new wave band, The Insanes, as lead singer, despite the fact that I really couldn't sing. We used to practice in Nick's den, Eric on drums, Nick on guitar, and me on vocals. They came up with the music and I wrote the lyrics. While our first songs were more new wave, with titles like Model Baby, Barbie Doll, Dead Puppy, She's So Brutal, and Fig Rock, our ode to Fresno and its fig orchards, we were increasingly influenced by the punk bands we were hearing at the time, from The Clash and Plasmatics to Black Flag and Minor Threat. So we decided to change our name to the Maniacs and formed one of the youngest punk bands ever. At the time we were only 13 years old, or at least a kind of teenage version of what a punk band sounded like. We soon recruited my twin brother Rob on co-lead vocals. Since we didn't have a bass player, our sound was a bit unique, although for a brief time, local punk rocker Eric Holt joined us to play bass on a few demos we made, including our punkabilly track, Last House on the Left, a commentary on the Reagan-era White House that plays on Wes Craven's slasher flick. We used to practice at Eric's house, and our songwriting process was more improv than anything else. During rehearsals, we would jam, find the song when the hook appeared, then work through it live in real time. Or I would often bring pre-written lyrics for us to build a song around from the ground up. Considering our home recording process was bargain basement to say the least, one mic, one amp, and a handheld portable tape recorder, our demos were rough, raw, and in your face, just the way we liked it.
And now, stay tuned for Tim and the Gang on Maximum Rock and Roll.
Every week, we used to tune in to Maximum Rock and Roll on public radio, rebroadcast in Fresno from KPFA in Berkeley, and listen to all the cool punk songs that host Tim Yohannan, Jeff Bale, and the gang would play. The weekly radio show opened up a whole new world to us and played a major role in fostering local punk scenes like ours around the globe, all unified by Maximum Rock and Roll.
We're only 14.
Noting that Tim and the gang would sometimes play unsigned bands, we decided to send them our homemade demo tape and see if they would play us on the air. And to our surprise, they did. Our first song on the radio was Off to War, the track that would later appear on Maximum Rock and Roll's Not So Quiet on the Western Front double LP compilation of West Coast punk bands.
I'm 18 off to war!
I remember the sheer excitement back then of hearing our song blasting out of my bedroom speakers for the first time, and a similar charge when the Not So Quiet compilation was first released, pulling the record out of its sleeve, playing it on the turntable, and hearing your song while thumbing through the very first issue of Maximum Rock and Roll's punk scene that we were featured in with all the other bands on the album. It was so cool to hear our songs on the radio, from Xmas Drone to Slit Wrist. We couldn't quite believe it, but they played many more on the air over the next few months and were vocal supporters of our band. I remember even the Dead Kennedys, Jello Biafra, called us Tiger Beat Teen Stars.
And in between there was that band from Fresno,
The Maniacs doing Slit Wrists.
Send us your phone number.
All right, yeah, actually, call in here. I want to talk to you guys. If you're listening out
Put you
there.
on the cover of Tiger Beat. Believe me, we can pull strings.
If you, yeah, I want to talk to those Maniacs too.
This momentum soon led to an offer to play a Maximumrocknroll hosted Fresno night at Mabuhay Gardens, the Fab Mab in San Francisco. So in January of 1982, when we were all but 14 years old, we drove up to the Bay Area with our parents, who tagged along because we were so young back then. That Fresno punk show at the Mab, featuring the Maniacs, Capital Punishment, NBJ, Frigidettes, Toxic Shock, and Cow, was an amazing night that went a long way to legitimize, promote, and validate our local punk scene. Ironically, our concert at the Mab was our band's first and last show we ever played, and if there's one thing I regret looking back now, it's that I wish the Maniacs could have actually played more shows during our brief time together. I remember the very first punk show we were booked to play with Capital Punishment, Frigidettes, and Toxic Shock was advertised to be held at Fresno Community College, but soon after that show was abruptly canceled due to officials' fear of the punk scene and its hardcore crowd. The gig was moved to Fresno's Woodward Park and went on without us. After our radio airplay on Maximumrocknroll, we received phone calls from well-known punk bands with offers to join them on tour in the US and Europe, but of course we had to turn them down. Truth be told, we were just too young and had to go to school the next day, and so it went. Even though it was fun while it lasted, we all began to move in different directions, and the original Maniacs lineup broke up in late 1982. Actually, we kept the band name going for a bit longer when we reformed a version of the Maniacs briefly, with the lineup that included me on vocals, our friend Gary Schuster on guitar, who would later join me to help form Think Tank the following year in 1983, and my twin brother Rob on drums. Well, not actual drums, because we didn't have a drummer at that point. He banged out a thrash beat on a cardboard box. That, more than anything, personified the do-it-yourself ethic that defined the punk scene back then in the early 80s. Use what you have to find your voice and get your message out there, whatever it takes. A year later, I would go on to front Think Tank, which played many punk shows at the Knights of Columbus Hall in Fresno, and later released our What Now EP on Mind Matter Records in 1986. Eric would go on to drum for many other bands, including Khyber Rifles, who released their 100 Problems EP on Rifle Records in 1984, and then later joined the Supreme Love Gods, who released their debut album on Deaf American in 1992. More recently, Eric has drummed in bands including The Shroud, Bev, and King Sugar. The Maniacs recently released their Lost Tapes Best Of compilation CD featuring 30 demo and live tracks culled from the vaults.
Well, you know, it's our first song we had on KPFA. Thank you, Tim.